Hi, I'm Gail Rubin. Welcome to our first episode of A Good Goodbye, Funeral Planning for Those Who Don't Plan to Die. Hi, I'm Gail Rubin, host and author of A Good Goodbye, Funeral Planning for Those Who Don't Plan to Die. Welcome to today's show, brought to you by the fine folks at French Funerals and Cremations. As the doyen of death, check out the pearls, I'm all about getting the funeral planning conversation started. A doyen is a woman who's considered senior in a group who knows a lot about a particular subject. And that would be me when it comes to the party no one wants to plan, a funeral or memorial service. By thinking about what you'd want in your funeral and having that conversation before there's a death or illness, you can reduce stress at a time of grief, minimize family conflict, save money, and create a meaningful, memorable good goodbye. That's what this program is all about. Just as talking about sex won't make you pregnant, talking about funerals won't make you dead. And your family will benefit from the conversation. So let's get the conversation started. Our guests today are Mark Ballard, Director of Sales, and Barbara Stewart, Community Liaison, both with French Funerals and Cremations. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for the invitation.
So we talked a little bit in my intro about the benefits of pre-planning.
Well, the benefits of pre-planning, really the first thing that always comes to mind with a lot of our families is the peace of mind of actually having it done, having it planned out, having their needs met, having been involved with their needs, being able to speak about what they want to have done or not done at their service or at their ceremony, what they would like to have, what would they not like to have, and actually having what we call the conversation about what their needs and wants would be when the event does happen. And I know that one of the things that we see with a lot of our families is that when that initial consultation is done, they're able to sit down with them and actually discuss it, which you promote quite a bit, is that they actually feel much better after it's done because they go and plan everything else in their life, weddings, celebrations, bar mitzvahs, baptisms, even small events for barbecues and everything. But when it comes to planning that pre-planning, they all talk about it, but they don't want to do it. And so we find out that when we actually sit down with them, that it ends up being a lot easier than they think. And then when they do leave our event, well, actually when they leave the appointment, they find out that it was a lot easier than they ever expected. And there's such a peace of mind that they actually go out, and one of our mottos is to live life passionately. So,
I'd like to touch a little bit on the law in the state of New Mexico. Fortunately, we have one of the best pre-need laws in the country. In 1987, our legislature passed a law that says you cannot pay a funeral in advance for your funeral plan. However, you can put those funds in an insurance vehicle with the funeral home. And there's several advantages to that. First of all, if you move, it is transferable 100%, including any growth that that policy could have. The other advantage is that it gets your plans in place and it locks the price in. That is a huge issue. One of the issues that comes out so often as more and more people are forced to go into nursing home care, and the only way they can afford that is through Medicaid. There is a Medicaid spend down process. This policy is exempt if it is irrevocably assigned.
And in fact, we do have Medicaid as one of our topics in an upcoming episode.
Good.
oh, good.
Yeah,
Good.
we go
It
into
ties
it
right
in depth.
into it.
So what keeps people from coming in and pre-planning for funerals?
Well, I laugh a little bit because usually the first thought that comes to mind, and I've had people that I've actually discussed that with and said, why don't you come in, meet with us, and they always have that little saying, they go, well, I'm not ready for you just yet.
Yeah.
I said, well, if you could figure that out, let me know, because we would be out of business. You know, I think part of it is just having the conversation, as we call it, and being able to actually sit down and say, you know what, I've thought about it, I've seen movies about it, I've heard people talk about it, I've attended funerals, And we all go to those things, and we all comment about ourselves or with our loved ones and say, I don't want that. You know what I really want is I want this. I want a celebration, you know. And the funeral industry has changed over the years, as well as the celebration aspect of it as well. I mean, the old traditional parts were the mourning, the crying, and being very sad at the event. And now the funeral industry has gone to really big, huge celebrations where they want to have parties. They have events like signs that say this is the no tear zone, you know, and they actually get to come into a really safe environment to be able to grieve and to share laughter and sadness and joy about whoever the loved one that's passing away.
It goes along with what your slogan is people are not going to die. They don't think they're going to die. And unfortunately, I don't know of any of us that gets out of this world alive.
Yes, humans do have a 100% mortality rate.
We do have that. And so just being able to stop and think about their mortality, sometimes it's very difficult. But think about how much more difficult it is for their family when that death actually occurs.
I know I've been to a number of funerals where the planning has occurred ahead of time, and the family is so much more, well, they're thankful that that planning took place, and so much calmer, and it really is a gift for people to do this for their families.
Well, and it's their wishes, and it eliminates a lot of overspending. Sometimes children will plan for a parent possibly spending more money than they really should out of guilt.
Guilt and
Maybe
grief.
they didn't, and grief, because they didn't spend enough time with them when they were alive.
And we don't want that.
No.
So what are some misconceptions that people might hold about pre-planning a funeral?
Usually the first one that comes to mind is if I just talk about it, something's going to happen. It's like you said, you know.
Talking about sex won't
doesn't
make you pregnant.
Right. Exactly.
Talking about funerals won't make you dead.
You know, there's I mean, with everything else that you plan, there's always a fear factor involved sometimes. And that's one of the things about our consultants that are very well trained, and we do get very emotionally involved with our clients and our families. We have to be in order to do our job so well. And so to sit down with somebody and actually get them to start talking about something is always the first step. And then to talk about their ancestry and things like that they may not have thought about in quite a while. So I think that with a lot of people, the first misconception is that, again, if I talk about it, something's going to happen or the thought is going to come up. But really, I think it's more the fear factor that we have to overcome with it. So,
do people ask about or have concerns about prepaying versus not prepaying when you pre-plan? Do they know that they can do that?
Well, very often they don't know. But sometimes because they have heard of people who have pre-funded a funeral and they lost their money. Well, they only lost their money because it was not done right. It was not placed in an insurance vehicle. So that fear, as far as anything with French, that is eliminated because it is done right.
Well, now myself, I have pre-planned with French and my husband as well, but we did not pre-fund it. We just felt like we wanted to do some other things with our money at this point in our lives.
Shall we have this conversation, Gail?
What?
About pre-funding it?
Sure. Well, I just know he's going to get the wicker basket casket because he does the laundry in our family.
All right, good.
well, a lot of people, when they start to pre-plan right away, they think they have to pay it all up at once. And that's not the factor. We can actually set up payment plans that be able to fit within their financial requirements are. It can go anywhere from 3 up to 10 years in payment plans. So whatever they want to meet with their needs, they could still have expenditures, be able to do something else, maybe go travel and do things with their loved ones, but still be able to have that pre-planning process and go. So.
And lock in the price.
That
Absolutely.
price guarantee is crucial.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So who are the types of people who do come in and pre-plan?
You know, it's everything. It's people used to think it's always somebody over 75 or 80 years of age, but we have them as young as 35 and 30 years of age because they've either gone through a process like that and they don't want to have that happen to their family. They know that the strangest things can happen just walking across the street, so they want to start doing the pre-planning now. So it's all ages, anywhere we call from 25 to 99 that can pre-plan it. Obviously, the older you are, the less years it may apply if you're over 85 to 87 years of age because of obviously the process of, you know, the chance of passing away sooner grows as we get older. It's a natural history. But anybody can really pre-plan at this point. Our World War II generation is getting down to about 10 or 12% now, the survivors, and now it's the big boomer generation that's coming into aspect. And so they're internet savvy, they want to get involved, they want to be able to do some process prior to planning before they come meet with the consultant, they want to do their research. So really it's anybody. I mean, there is nobody restricted, but it is primarily usually a little more on the female side because as we know, women are a little more convincing than men are in coming to plan for something like that. So
They're the party planners.
Women
Yes.
tend to be planners,
Yes.
and they don't. They also care probably more deeply, in a sense, for their family that they don't want to put this burden on. The average age of people that pre-plan is around 72.
Before the major declines start happening with health.
That will probably change too
Yeah.
as the baby boomers are coming of age.
And we'll talk a little bit more about different options for what they're planning for, because I'm sure the baby boomers all have their own ideas about
do.
what they want to
you are correct.
have done with their final send-off. So we're going to take a short break, but when we return, we'll continue our conversation with Mark and Barbara of French Funerals and Cremations.
How can you eat like that?
Relax, dude. I'm freaking dead. It's one of the perks. I can eat whatever the hell I want.
How do I get in on it?
What, the whole death thing?
Yeah.
First off, I mean, look at what you're eating. No wonder you've lived this long. Feed this to the village cow, all right? Bring him a glass of your finest expired milk. Oh, before you go checking out, do you have a will, any funeral arrangements, plans like that?
Did you?
No, and because of that, now my family's in turmoil. They're fighting, bickering over money. Now they're dead broke. Do some real planning, okay, before you figure out your exit strategy. See? Everybody's doing it.
I can't wait to get started.
I've never seen anybody dying to die like you. Good luck, kid.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Mark Ballard and Barbara Stewart of French Funerals and Cremations. Let's continue the conversation about funeral planning issues. So before we went to the break, you actually talked a bit about online research.
Yes.
And I understand you have an online planner with your website for French's that can help people get their mind around the questions they need to ask and how to start filling in those answers. So we have a website available to pull up on the screen, and we'll walk through what those questions are. This is the funeralwise.com quick plan. It's a very easy way to sketch out what your funeral arrangements might be and find out what they might cost. Say, for example, you chose cemetery burial. In 4 quick steps, you can get an idea of the cost range from low cost to high cost. And this is important so you know what to budget for your funeral. As you can see, with just the selection of a casket and a burial, we're looking at anywhere from $9,000 to $12,000, almost $13,000. When you add embalming and out-of-town transportation, you can see at the end of that 4 steps what kind of funeral cost estimate you're looking at. When you save your plan with funeralwise.com, you can get an online repository of your choices that's password protected that you can pass along to your loved ones so they can find out your choices. This is my own plan. For example, I'm choosing a cemetery burial with a plain pine box. And when we view more details in my plan, you can see all of the different arrangements that you can put on file. Not only are we talking about where the burial would take place, the costs for the cemetery, the merchandise, the funeral services. You can also dictate exactly what funeral home you want to use for your services. For example, I've put my plans on file with French Funerals and Cremation, and that contact information is part of my online plan. You can go into more detail about the kind of ceremony that you'd like. what clergy person you'd like to have do it or certified celebrant, pallbearers, readings, music, flowers, memorial tributes, etc. So these are the kind of details we want to put on file so our families know what our preferences would be. And you can also put contact information for all of your family that you would want to get in touch with. So that's the funeralwise.com online planner. Did you want to add something about that,
Well,
Barbara?
the main thing is talk to your family.
Yeah.
People just don't want to talk to their family about their funeral wishes. And then a death occurs and the children have no idea. And very often we are dealing with blended families anymore. And that can be a very difficult situation when part of the family says we want dad cremated and the other part says no way. So it's very important to make sure that your family knows what you want.
That's
Of course,
family
to be able to
conflict.
fill in this form and have that in writing makes it so much better.
Absolutely. And, you know, it's funny, I do talks to the public and have a license to use funny films as part of that. And one of my favorites is 6 Feet Under.
Yeah.
There's an episode where there was an uncle in the family who was very quiet, and it was a very noisy family. And he has diabetes, and he goes ahead and eats something sugary, and he dies. And then the family is, he wanted to be cremated. No, we wanted to be buried. And, you know, arguments about what to do at the viewing and music and just the whole 9 yards. So it really illustrates the importance of having a conversation. In fact, the funeral director's son, Nate, talks to the guy in the casket saying, I just wish you could tell me what you wanted. And the guy talks back to him. Of course, it's TV, saying, you're asking me what I want?
And we tell people to
and he
have
says,
that.
yeah, it's your funeral.
We tell them to have that conversation and not just have it with one sibling, have it with all of them if you can.
Exactly.
And let the other surviving members know that, hey, look, I did speak to Mary and I told her what I wanted, this is what I want. Relay that to everybody. Because when they do come together, we wanted to make it as comforting as possible, considering the situation. But we've had situations where families come in from out of town, aren't aware of what's going on. And there is some really heated discussion sometimes, as you mentioned, like with the 6 Feet Under. You don't know what's going on. You didn't know Dad. You weren't here. You didn't take care of him. Yes, I did. You know, and it just, you know, the more you can talk about it before, the better it is.
Well, and any time cremation is a part of that process, it's so important to have as much of that taken care of in advance. And a lot of people don't realize they can sign their own cremation authorization form.
In New Mexico.
In New Mexico,
Not every
yes.
state
That
has
is correct,
but,
not in every
yeah.
state.
So
Yeah.
it's worth checking out.
It is absolutely worth it.
Yeah. And would you have any tips for people to become better prepared besides having the conversation?
You know, I think that's the most important thing. I mean, even if you don't pre-plan, which we would like them to do that because it really sets there's so many benefits of it. At least have it documented, have it, you know, legally notarized and have it done by a lawyer and everything else so that your wishes are met. So at least that part is done. So should your family have to do it the day of the event, they know exactly what your wishes and wants are. And I think, like Barbara said, the more the conversation, the better there is, and have it actually noted on paper.
Well, and I recommend people shop around too. You know,
Absolutely.
they should come to you guys.
No, but absolutely they should. We want them to shop around. We
Yeah.
want them to go where they feel right. The one thing that we do pride ourselves in is that they can come with us with any plan they get from anywhere, and we'll compare apples to apples and make sure that they have the best options for them to make their own choices.
Okay. Have you seen any unusual plans, people planning really big parties as part of their pre-need planning?
Well, we've had some where they actually have had huge celebrations where they could be anywhere from having balloons released to having a balloon rally to having cigars at the event afterwards to having a huge dance party with music and libations and just having fun. They've had ones where they've actually, I mean, our industry, fortunately, can run pretty wild as far as celebrations. And even outside of our industry, in some areas of the states, they have incredible celebrations to where they have full-blown processions and they'll paint up the cars. I mean, I think people go through life and think about, you know, if I'm going to go out, this is how I want to go out. And, you know, we encourage people to have some type of memorialization service, even if they think, you know what, I don't want them to worry about me. And we do have to tell them, you know, I'm sorry, but that memorialization service is about your surviving family. It's not about you. you know, because they want that safe place to come and celebrate. They want to hear the stories. They want to hear the wild things, the things that they thought they knew about you that they didn't know about you.
Well, and that is a very important thing about having a funeral, is to share those stories and to get to know, because you're bringing together the different circles of people's lives.
Right.
And, you know, somebody from the Civic Club might not know about, you know, their writing or whatever. And it's a chance for everybody to come away knowing that person better.
Well, I tell people the funeral is about you, but it's for your family.
Exactly.
Because you're not really there, but they are. And they're the ones that are grieving. They're the ones that are celebrating your life.
Yeah.
It's a great introduction to the grief process. It really is, to help it go through and get through it.
And so much of our society is kind of grief and mourning avoidant.
Yes, very true.
And it is sad when families say, well, we're not having a funeral, we're not doing something. I, in fact, wound up going to, it's part of my 30 Funerals in 30 Days project, went to a funeral at a bowling alley bar that was put on by the woman who was the bartender there, because the guy's family, the wife said, we don't want a funeral, but his community wanted to celebrate his life. And that's important to remember. It's not just the family, but it's also the community.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And people need to remember that, the family, as they're planning. That is where reception, when so many families these days are having receptions. And that's an opportunity for those family and friends, especially, that they may not have known each other. They have the opportunity to share stories about the deceased. And that's a very, very healing and special time for that family.
Are there some new trends that you're seeing that you could talk about further? I mean, the reception is certainly a well-established part of just about any life cycle event. Things that are going on with funerals that...
Well, as far as trends, I mean, if you're relating to receptions, I mean, one that took me back that we conducted for a brother of a friend of mine, it was basically a situation where they knew he was going to pass away, and they did a pre-plan even as soon as 3 months. And so in the actual celebration, they put on there that everybody had to attend with a Hawaiian shirt. A Jimmy Buffett type ceremony. And as they walked in through the door, everybody got a lay on their shirt and everything else, and kind of give you the scenario of it. Here I'm thinking I'm in the industry, and I show up in my suit and everything else, and the first thing they came up to me was get rid of the jacket, put on the shirt, put on the lay, and walk in. And there I am with my president, and they got up at the microphone, they joked about it. And the one comment that we got out of it when they left was they thought it was really funny that Bob at the time put fun back in funeral.
Oh, I love it.
Which I thought was great.
I love it.
Did you have any?
Well, it's the celebration. And when we go to a wedding, we celebrate. When we go to bar mitzvahs, when we go to birthday parties, it is a celebration. And what better time to celebrate than celebrating a life that was lived? And sometimes we want to skip over that because we think it's going to be painful. But is that really fair to those family and friends?
And we do need to celebrate, and we do need to recognize that there has been a change in our lives.
Absolutely.
By that person passing on. And we don't know what's beyond this lifetime, but I think it's going to be great.
Well, I think our step in the right direction of having celebrations is a great way to go. If you look back to the days that we were raised by our parents, it was that scenario of that funeral was a very grim, very somber, very sad event.
And that's changed.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
When you walked in, that was how it was portrayed, and now it's not anymore.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Special thanks to our guests today, Mark Ballard and Barbara Stewart with French Funerals and Cremations, and a big thank you to the French family of companies for supporting this program. Join us next week as we discuss cemetery questions and answers. And you can find out more about our topic today, as well as a bunch of great resources at my website, agoodgoodbye.com. So remember, talking about sex won't make you pregnant. Talking about funerals won't make you dead. Start a conversation today.
Proper estate planning enables you to pass your possessions and your assets to the people and organizations that you care about. By planning with a living trust, you could avoid the high cost of probate and minimize taxation. The attorneys at Morris Hall have been helping thousands of clients pass their assets as they intended. To schedule your free consultation, call us at 505-889-0100 or visit us at morristrust.com.
A Good Goodbye, Funeral Planning for Those Who Don't Plan to Die is a light touch on a serious subject. The book has everything you need to know before you go. A Good Goodbye helps you reduce stress and family conflict, save money, and create a meaningful, memorable good goodbye. It's available in paperback and all ebook formats through online retailers and at agoodgoodbye.com. Start a conversation today.
Why are we talking about this at the dinner table? Just put my ashes in a coffee can or something. Please pass the salt, dear.
Can I help you, ma'am?
Yeah. Which can would you recommend putting my mom's ashes in?
I think I heard ashes.
I'm sorry, my mom's cremated remains.
That sounds the same.
My mom didn't even like coffee. She drank tea.
You can't avoid your funeral. Preplan and take the burden off someone else.
Hi, I'm Gail Rubin, host and author of A Good Goodbye, Funeral Planning for Those Who Don't Plan to Die, and creator of The Newly Dead Game. The Newly Dead Game is like the classic TV show The Newlywed Game, but the questions test how well you know someone else's last wishes. It's a fun way to get the funeral planning conversation started. For more information about The Newly Dead Game, visit agoodgoodbye.com.